Sushila Tipshetty, lecturer at KLS Kokte College of Commerce, Belgavi. So in previous video we had studied about the origin of statistics, some of its functions and limitations, also few of the characteristics of statistics. So today in this video we will be dealing with the basic concepts. What do you mean by statistical investigation? And what is census enumeration and sample survey, and what do you mean by sampling, what are the types of samplings along with their merits and demerits, and what do you mean by primary and secondary data, and also methods of collecting primary data. So let's move to some of the basic concepts that are always frequently used. So in a statistical survey, the object whose characteristics are studied are called as units or individuals, and the totality of units under the consideration is called as population or universe. So you can take an example like in the study of financial condition of families of a particular tribe, the set of all families belonging to that tribe is the population, whereas the individual families are known as units. Also, in the study of financial condition of families in India, the set of all families in India is the population, whereas each family is known as the units. So in population there are two types. One is finite population and the other one is infinite population. So a population which contains finite number of units is a finite population, and a population which contains infinite number of units is known as infinite population. So example of finite population is, you can consider what is the strength of BCom students at Kokte College of Commerce. So you know the exact number, like how many students are there. So that is called as finite population. Whereas on the other hand, population of height of plants is infinite. So you can't get an exact number of how many plants are there and what are their heights. So such can be categorized under infinite population. So some of the units are categorized into quantitative characteristics and qualitative characteristics. So the characteristics which are numerically measurable are known as quantitative characteristic, and the characteristics which are not numerically measurable are known as qualitative characteristics. Examples of quantitative characteristics are height of a person or weight of some fruits, etc. And for qualitative characteristic, you can take examples such as intelligence, beauty, skin color, etc. So what do you mean by variable? A quantitative characteristic which varies from unit to unit is called as variable, whereas a qualitative characteristic which varies from unit to unit is known as attribute. For example, as we have seen, it is skin color or sex. In variable, again there are two types. One is discrete variable and the other is continuous variable. A variable which assumes only some specified values in a given range is called as discrete variable. For example, number of children per family is a discrete variable. What do you mean by continuous variable is a variable which assumes all the values in a range is called as continuous variable. For example, height of a student in particular class or weight, etc. So what is quantitative and qualitative data is, the numerically expressed data are known as quantitative data. Example, age or monthly income, all this involves some numbers, so those are categorized as quantitative data, and the data which are not numerically expressed are qualitative data. Example, intelligence of a student or appearance of a person which is measured in beauty. So all this come under qualitative data, that is which cannot be numerically measured. The measurement of quantitative characteristics such as height, weight or number of children, these are all easy to measure. But in case of qualitative characteristics such as intelligence, smartness, cuteness, such examples are relatively difficult. So the quantification of qualitative phenomena requires a different type of scales. for the measurement. So there are two types, that is, one is nominal scale, other one is the ordinal scale. Nominal scale is the one in which numbers are assigned simply as symbols, that is identifiers, of the different categories of observation. For example, you can see the numbers which are assigned to the cricket players, like behind the jerseys there will be some numbers. So these numbers are just used for the identification, but they don't have any magnitude. For example, you can't say a player who has number 1 assigned to him is a good player, or the number assigned like 10 is an average player. So it is not that, it is just used for the identification. Or you can take example like roll numbers assigned to students of college. So there are, as per the strength and alphabetical wise, the numbers are assigned, but it does not have anything to do with the performance of that particular student. So the other one is ordinal scale. Ordinal scale is the one in which numbers are assigned to observations in such a way that they are arranged in the increasing or decreasing order. For example, 10 students are ranked 1, 2, 3 up to 10 according to their performance in examination. So here the magnitude matters. So the who comes the first rank, so they are assigned obviously in the number 1. So here the magnitude matters. You can take other examples such as in a survey of village people, the people are assigned numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 according to their education level. So one is no education, education below SSLC, PUC or diploma or degree or more. So these has to be maintained in a sequence. So such examples come under ordinal scale. Let's move to the statistical investigation or statistical survey. A study of characteristics of units of a population by using a statistical device and techniques is called a statistical investigation or statistical survey. So this kind of investigation may be used to know and to prove a newly formed theory concerning a population, to know the existing nature of the population, or to formulate a new theory concerning the population. So for these types of investigations, statistical survey is required. So there are two stages of statistical investigation. One is planning and preparation, and the second stage is execution of the survey. So in planning and preparation, various factors have to be considered. So there are 8 factors. So we'll see one by one. The first one is the purpose of the survey. So a clear statement regarding the purpose should be prepared so that every aspect of the survey can be properly planned. Also, the hypotheses that are to be tested should be stated. So without such a clear vision of the purpose, the investigation is likely to lead to the collection of inaccurate and incomplete data. So the survey may result in wrong conclusion. So always it is very necessary to have what kind of investigation you need. So the purpose should be well defined. So knowing the purpose, then we can go to the scope of the survey. So here the scope with regard to the geographical coverage and the details of information required for the study will be decided. So the scope is mainly based on the purpose of the survey. The other factors which influence the scope are availability of funds, facilities, and time. So the next factor is preparation of frame. A frame is a list of addresses or any other specification of the individuals or units in a population. So given a population, you have to know the list of address or some other characteristics of units. So that is known as frame. So while preparing frame, care should be taken to see that it is complete, it is accurate, and it should not be repeated, that is without any duplication, and it is always up to date. So this is the importance of preparation of frame. So the next factor is type of the survey. So there are 2 types. One is census enumeration and the other one is sample survey. So in the upcoming slides we'll be having a detailed study about this. So here in this, the investigator may adopt either the census method or he may go for in the sample survey. So depending upon the facilities available such as resources, time and labor, or one may decide on the type of the survey. However, if the population is vast or if the survey procedure damages any of the properties of the individuals, so in such cases sample survey is preferred. So the next type of factor is type of data to be collected. There are two types of data again, that is primary data or secondary data. So even this will be studying in the upcoming slides. So the investigator should decide whether he should base his survey on primary data or on secondary data. In case of primary data, the method of collection should be decided earlier. In the case of secondary data, the source of data should be identified. So here the choice depends on the purpose of the survey and on the facilities available. So moving to the next factor, that is statistical units to be used. So there are two types of units. One is the unit of collection and the other one is units of analysis. So in units of collections, these are used for counting or measurement during the collection of the data. So they are like example year or illiterate or number of married persons and unemployed persons, skilled workers, etc. So all these come under units of counting. So the other unit is unit which are used for analyzing. So once you have collected the data, you have to do the analysis. So for that you require some units such as the rates, ratios, percentages, coefficients, averages, etc. So these come under units of analysis. So units must be well defined, they must be simple to adopt, stable throughout the survey and suitable for the study. So the next factor is degree of accuracy desired. So these we had studied in the characteristic of statistics. So the degree of accuracy with which the measurements are made and the degree of accuracy with which the inferences are reached will depend on the object of the investigation and also on the resources and facilities available. It is necessary to specify the desired degree of accuracy. And the last factor is statistical techniques to be adopted for the analysis and the decision making. So the statistical procedure adopted for the analysis and decision making should be pre-decided. The statistics to be computed and the parameters to be estimated, the hypothesis to be tested, the levels of testing and the testing procedures are also decided at the stage. Such decisions would help in the collection of all the information essential for the study. So these all 8 factors come under planning and preparation. So once you are done with the planning and preparation, we go for the execution of the survey. So in this execution of the survey has 4 steps. So the first step is collection of the data, second one is presentation of the data, third is analysis of the data, and the last stage is interpretation of analyzed data. So these, if you remember, we had studied in the definition of statistics in singular sense. So these are the steps that involved in execution of the survey. So now let's move on to types of survey we had seen, that is census enumeration and sample survey. So if the investigation is based on the population as whole, it is called as census enumeration or complete enumeration. On the other hand, if it is based on a part of the population, it is called as sample survey. So sometimes you just need a part of the population to study and the remaining conclusions are made based on the sample and are applied to the whole population. You can take an example. If you want to measure the health condition of a patient, you do blood testing. So you just take a drop of blood and on that drop of blood you do the analysis. So So it doesn't mean you have to take the entire blood of the patient and do analysis. So here you can use the sample survey. So the benefits of census method are it is free of sampling errors. Second merit is for small population census method is preferable. Results are accurate and reliable. Statistical analysis of the data is much simpler than in sample survey. So the demerits of census method are non-sampling errors are likely to be more. For large population, collection of data by census method becomes costly, time consuming and requires more labor. It is because each and every unit in the population is considered and the data is collected. So it takes a lot of time and requires more labor. So when the population is hypothetical, census enumeration is not possible. While procuring the data, if the units are damaged, census enumeration cannot be conducted. Let's see the merits of sample survey. So here in sample survey, it is more scientific, it is cheaper than the census method, it consumes less time and labor, results are valid and reliable provided it is well planned and conducted scientifically. For larger population, always sample survey is preferable. So now let's see the demerits of sample survey. It requires the adoption of appropriate sampling method and appropriate method of analysis. Sampling errors are part and parcel of sample survey. So here, whatever may be the sampling method adopted, the sample selected is likely to differ slightly in the structure from the population. So this difference leads to an error in the estimation of properties of the population. So such error is called as sampling error. That is, the sample that you have selected and the original population from which the sample is collected has some slight difference. So that difference is known as sampling error. So the magnitude of sampling error depends on the size of the sample, the sampling procedure adopted, and the variation in the population. So the sampling error can be reduced to a great extent by increasing the sample size, considering more than one sample, and by adopting appropriate sampling methods. So in sample survey, sampling errors are the part and parcel. So the third demerit is intensive statistical analysis is required because results are reached by induction, that is by estimation. The fourth demerit is if the results with highest accuracy are essential, then we can go for census enumeration. So these are the demerits of sample survey. Let's see what is sampling. The process of extracting a sample from a population is called sampling. So there are three different methods of collecting the samples. Since the validity of results of a survey depends mainly on the selection of the sample should be obtained with the utmost care. So the methods of sampling are simple random sampling, systematic sampling, and stratified sampling. So simple random sampling, in this method, each and every unit of the population have equal chance of being included in the sample. So generally simple random sample is obtained either by lottery method or by the use of random numbers. Lottery method is adopted only when the number of units in the population is less, because in lottery method you have to name each and every unit present in that population. So random numbers can be easily obtained from the table of random numbers and also from the computers and calculators. So the merits of simple random sampling are it is simple and a reliable method. It can be calculated when the units are small. So the demerits are it is not applicable for large sample size. It involves complete listing of all the units present in the population. The next sampling method is stratified sampling. So in this method, the heterogeneous data is converted into a homogeneous data according to a strata. So this type of sampling is called as stratified sampling. For example, you want to obtain a sample from a population of students of a college. So, a group of students studying in various classes may be treated as strata, and from each stratum, that is from each class, some students may be randomly selected to form a sample. So, this method is known as stratified sampling. So, the merits of stratified sampling are: it is a representative sample, it has greater precision, and it is used for administrative convenience. The demerits of stratified sampling are: appropriate size of samples to be drawn from each of the stratum, that is class, requires accurate knowledge and skilled supervisors. If the stratification is faulty, the results will be biased, that is, there are some errors. The error due to wrong stratification cannot be compensated even by taking large samples. So, the third method of collecting sample is systematic sampling. Systematic sampling is done by using sampling interval, which is denoted by K. Sampling interval is a ratio of population size to the sample size. That the formula is K equal to n divided by small n. Here capital N is for the size of the population and small n is for the sample size. For example, if capital N is equal to 1000, that is the population size, and if the sample size is 100, then the sampling interval is 10. So here each plot consists of 10 units in a serially arranged population. So the systematic sampling is a procedure of forming a sample by selecting equally separated units in a serially arranged population. So the merits are: it is a simple method and it involves less time and labor. So the results obtained are accurate. The demerits are: it works only if the complete and up-to-date frame is available and if the units are randomly arranged. It gives a biased result if the units in the population show periodicity. So these are the methods of sampling. So now let's move to the types of data, that is primary data and secondary data. Primary data are fresh data collected directly from the field. They are the first-hand data. That is, the investigator directly goes to the respondents and he collects the required information. So such data are known as primary data. So the important methods of collecting primary data are direct observation method, personal interview method, information through the correspondence, method of questionnaire, and method of schedule. So secondary data are the data which the investigator borrows from others who have collected them for some other purpose. So the important sources of secondary data are published source and unpublished source. So in published source, the information will be published through the magazines, newspapers, or other communication methods such as mails or social medias. So through these mediums, the information will be published and the investigator can use such information for his further studies. So the second source of data are unpublished sources. So these are not openly circulated in the public. They are the records that are maintained by government offices, panchayat offices, or municipal offices, also in some research institution and by research scholars. So now let's look into details about the collection of primary data. So the first method is direct observation method. So in this method, the investigator collects the required information by personal observation of the units. So the investigator personally goes to the respondents and he collects what are the data that he needs. So the merits of this method are: the data collected are reliable and accurate, and also the investigator can collect additional information of interest if necessary. The demerit is: this method is expensive and time consuming. There is a typing mistake, it should have been used. Okay, and this method can be used only when the number of units to be contacted is less and when they can be easily reached, and also there is some scope for bias. The next method is personal interview method. In this method, the investigator personally interviews the respondents and extracts the information from them. Here the investigator may go for face-to-face interview, or also he may get the information through telephone or other communication system. So the merits are: data collected by this method are reliable, accurate and exhaustive. The investigator has freedom to restructure the interview whenever required, as it can be even done through the communication system, so the investigator can reschedule it. The additional information of interest can also be collected in this method, and the non-response rate is very low. The method does not require the respondents to be educated. So the demerits are: the method is expensive, especially when the respondents are spread over a vast geographical area, and this method requires more time and labor. It may be difficult to contact interview of highly placed people such as politicians or some celebrities. To interview them, it might be slightly difficult. The next method is information through correspondence. So in this method, the investigator appoints agents, and here the agents are called as correspondents. So the investigator appoints correspondents at different places, and these correspondents collect required data in their area and hand them over to the investigator. So the merits are: in this method is useful when the data are to be collected regularly for a long period of time. So this method is economical and fast. So the demerits are: the information collected by agents may not be reliable and accurate. Some of the units may be hesitate to give information to the agents. So as the investigator personally does not investigate the respondents, few respondents may not agree to give their personal informations to the agents. So these are the merits and demerits of information through correspondence. So the next method is method of questionnaire. Questionnaire is a list of questions, answers for which questions are filled in by the informants, and these answers are required information for the investigation. That is, here the investigator prepares a questionnaire. So in questionnaire there will be a list of question and answers. So the respondents have to fill this, and using this the investigator gets the necessary information. So the questionnaire is sent to the informants by either mail or some other communication media. So the merits are: it is useful when the area under investigation is vast, it is inexpensive, and it consumes less time and labor. The demerits are: data obtained by this method may not be accurate. Here the non-response rate would be high. This method is not applicable for the respondents who are illiterate, and sometimes the respondents may not give back the questionnaire to the investigator, or maybe the questionnaire may be partially filled. So these are all the demerits. And the last method is method of schedule. Here the investigator collects data through the trained enumerators. The enumerators contact the informants, and with the help of a schedule they collect the required information. Here a schedule is a list of items on which the enumerators have to collect and record the information. So the merits are: the enumerators are well trained, so the data collected by this method are reliable and accurate. This method is useful when the informants are illiterate and they spread over a large area. This method is inexpensive. The demerits are: this method requires intense training of the enumerators. Reliability of the data depends mainly on the training given to the enumerators and their integrity. In this method there is a scope for bias. So in the next unit and video we'll be studying about the classification of the data and tabulation. So I hope you guys are making notes and you're able to understand my teaching. Thank you.